everyone, and welcome back to What a Barb, a Polin podcast. I'm Ops, and this week I'm joined by Lecky, Veg, and our lovely Beans has returned as we continue our Polin rewatch of season 2. Beans, did you find Atlantis?
I didn't find Atlantis, but I did find mental clarity.
Well, that's more than what we can say with some people in this episode, so, proud of you.
Thank you.
Welcome back. You come back at the right time.
Yeah.
We need you for this episode. And it's also a very sacred day that I'm sure you're thrilled to celebrate this. On the day of recording, it's exactly 1 year since the Blessed Tudum 2022.
No, I did not realize that.
Yeah, happy anniversary.
Delighted to spend the day with you, lovely ladies, again.
Again, yeah, here we are again. So this time last year, Veg, sadly, you were not involved in this. Sorry.
No, I was on the live stream.
You were on the live stream, but this time last year we were all messaging each other. And do you remember how much we kicked off when we didn't get a clip?
We did, we did a little chat together, and our surprise and disappointment.
Yep.
Oh, well.
There was 4 clips on the little film clipboard, and you guys were like, were 3 clips, there has to be one more. And I was like, no, I don't think there is.
We were like, no, keep watching, they're going to come back. And you were like, no.
Voice of reason, Beans.
But, a year later, we still haven't got a clip.
Oh, God.
Still haven't gotten a clip. We got 4 pictures. Great pictures.
Mm-hmm. We got 2 episodes worth of material out of the 4 pictures. So
it's okay. The real to-dum was the friends we made along the way.
yes.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Speaking of the To-Doom clips and Pirate Colin, you have some pirate news, don't you, Ubs?
I do have some... Well, I've had a very piratey week, Lecky, to be honest with you. All week, I've been staying in none other than Hostel Pirate. Ooh. It is everything you could hope for and more. It's incredible. The place I'm staying in used to be like a pirate hotspot, like a genuine real pirates. And they really lean into the theme. And I've had a beautiful week at Hostel Pirate. Or, as I've been told the locals say it, Hostel Pirate.
Amazing. I love pirates. For a spell, it was my dream to open a pirate-themed restaurant.
Wow.
What would have been on the menu at a pirate-themed restaurant?
It was like Caribbean food.
Some crab legs.
Okay. I'm sorry that dream died. That's very upsetting.
That's okay.
But yeah, I've had a lovely time.
Yeah.
Tomorrow I'm leaving the country, going somewhere new. We'll see where I end up.
You've added Albania or some such place to your itinerary.
Maybe I have, Veg. Beans? You're very prophetic. Are your tinglings wet anything at the minute?
You mean Bridgerton related?
Yeah.
Not really. I feel like maybe we'll hear something in October.
You're like our Punxsutawney Phil. You're like, go back to sleep for another year, guys. We're getting nothing.
Maybe mid to late October, latest beginning of November.
Right. There, you heard it first from us.
6 more weeks of winter Polin fans.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
More coming weeks. I'll come in.
Please watch the Groundhog Day musical. It's amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get cracking.
Yes. We've got an episode to get on with. And you know what? It's a great episode. Happy days all around. I almost went on protest at the fact that I had to rewatch this. So that's kind of my headspace. Traumatizing. But, we've got to get over to Aubrey Hall. We've got the Hearts and Flowers ball to get to. But before we do, just to delay the inevitable even further, Lecky, take us through the breaking crumbs of the week. So, Lecky, what have you got for us?
Hello, Barbkin. Phoebe Dynevor was featured in Elle magazine earlier this week. In the interview, which was conducted before the strike began, Phoebe discussed her new projects Fair Play and Anniversary, as well as her experiences in the industry. In the feature, executive producer of Bridgerton, Betsy Beers, said of Phoebe that finding the right Daphne was very difficult, but Phoebe has this incredible ability to both embody the rigid roles of Regency-era England and also transform into a heroine we could all identify with. Phoebe's new film Fair Play will premiere on Netflix on the 6th of October. Excitingly, the film was the subject of an intense bidding war at Sundance Film Festival, with Netflix ultimately winning out, suggesting that the film is going to be pretty great. So definitely check that out in the next few weeks.
Yeah, that one's definitely on my list.
Yeah, and it's also like a romantic thriller. And I think she mentioned it in this article too, that it's very much about the power dynamics in a relationship. Kind of a little element of Bridgerton there.
Bit of drama.
In other cast news, Florence Hunt, our wonderful Hyacinth Bridgerton, appeared at the Dior Spring-Summer 24 show during Paris Fashion Week, looking absolutely lovely.
Oh, she really did.
Nicholas' show Derry Girls has been nominated for an International Emmy Award in the comedy category, so best of luck to the entire cast and crew.
Yay!
In more awards news, Bert Seymour's show The Diplomat has been nominated for Best New Drama at the TV Choice Awards 2024, and at the same awards, Wreck, the horror comedy starring James Foon, has been nominated nominated for Best Drama. So UK listeners, you can go and vote for both shows if you'd like via the link in our show notes. And US listeners, voting appears to work for those across the pond as well.
Does it?
Yes, I voted last night. Speaking of Harry Dankworth, you can also catch James Foon voicing a character in the new Warhammer Plus show, Pariah Nexus, the first 2 episodes of which are already available to stream on Warhammer TV. And elsewhere, everyone's favorite footman, Ollie Higginson, can be seen in episode 4 of The Chelsea Detective, available now on Prime Video.
We love Footman John.
But for the big news this week, in strike news, as you may have heard, the WGA and AMPTP have reached an agreement last Sunday, bringing the writers' strike to an end after 148 days. The agreement made meaningful gains for the writers across issues such as AI protections, residuals, minimum staffing for writers' rooms, and data transparency. WGA President Meredith Steam praised members for the resolve and the solidarity seen within the WGA itself, as well as within SAG-AFTRA. And we are so pleased to hear that the writers were able to secure the deal they deserve and hope the same will soon be possible for SAG-AFTRA. Speaking of which, SAG-AFTRA have announced that they will be meeting with the AMPTP on Monday, October 2nd, to resume negotiations. This is a pretty good sign, and while we can't say for certain how things will turn out, I think the strength of the WGA's deal shows that the studios and streamers are ready to get back to business and willing to quickly hammer out a deal, so we'll see how things go.
Yeah, let's hope.
Over in London, the Broadcasting, Entertainment, Communications and Theatre Union, BECTU, will be holding a demonstration in Leicester Square on Thursday, October 5th, to call on the AMPTP to resolve the strike and to raise awareness of the impact the strikes have had on the UK film and television industry. And I just want to say we're not laughing because it's a funny matter. I'm laughing because Obs wanted me to mispronounce that, and I actually knew how to pronounce Leicester Square because of the Kink song Dedicated Follower of Fashion. So, thank you.
I tried to convince you it was Leicester.
Yeah, and I responded by saying, you are a cruel woman indeed to stand here and talk of friendly affection as if you've not just committed a grave sin against me.
You'd still rock up in your carriage to get me there, wouldn't you?
To lighten the mood, the day this episode is released is the 1-year anniversary of the very first Champagne Friday, something which became a beloved tradition for both production and fans.
I can't believe it's been a year. I remember that time very, very fondly. Every Friday we were so excited to see if Dick was going to post.
I remember sadly you never got your hoodie.
I never got my jumper. I so wanted, but I had no money to remember. And the one time I finally got a paycheck at my new job, she stopped doing them.
They stopped
but it's okay.
posting.
I've got my biscuit cushion and my bench mug. If you know, you know.
Yes, and so we'd like to raise a glass of champagne or a bench mug or have some tea or lemonade or your personal drink of choice to celebrate Nicola and each other.
Oh, here's to you, Leck. Thank you, Lecky. In today's episode, we'll be breaking down everything Pen and Colin from Season 2, Episode 4, Victory. We're already at the halfway point of Season 2. We're cracking through, guys, and what an episode.
I loved it.
Beans, we need you to lighten the mood for us, honestly, this time.
I don't know if I'm going to lighten the mood, because I feel like when I was rewatching it, I felt pretty critical of Pen.
Yeah, same.
Ooh.
I agree with you.
Ditto.
We'll get there. Veg, you're going to have to man up the defences for Pen.
Great.
But to kick us off, Lady Veg, can you give us our episode summary?
Dearest gentle listener, this episode, the Ton arrives at Aubrey Hall and mingles. Anthony's plans to seal the deal with Edwina are thrown by a flash of Kate's thigh and a flirt in the library. Colin fuckface Bridgerton goes to visit Marina and her new family, where he tells an olive joke, makes a friend, and gets some thought-provoking advice. Portia coordinates an engagement between Prudence and Jack, but is dismayed to discover that he has been a poor little man all along. And after much anguish, Anthony ultimately proposes to Edwina.
Dun dun dun.
That single Bridgerton brain cell. Nowhere to be seen. Thank you for that, Lady Veg. Right, let's get started then.
Last week we had so much fun with Modiste Watch that we figured we'd pay tribute to another fan favorite character this episode. And if you've been suffering in this fandom for as long as we have, you'll likely know, if not already, love Lord Fife. First name, undetermined.
Bertram, according to AO3.
It's either Bertram or Reginald, according to AO3. But if you've somehow avoided falling into the Fife Life camp over the past year, here's a quick explanation.
You're missing out.
I think it's partly a bad boy thing, but he's also kind of a shitster. If you like Chaos Colin, Lord Fife has an element of that. He's commonly referenced using either snake and cocktail or martini emojis, and for those unaware, Obs is a pretty big fan. In fact, she thinks Lord Fife is innocent of the accusation so many have lodged at him, and wrote an In Defense of Lord Fife Fife script breakdown last year, which is hilarious and which we will, of course, be sharing.
There's nothing hilarious about the truth, Lecky. I will defend this man to my dying day. Name me something that he's actually done wrong, and I'm open to listening. But if you actually look at the text in front of us, the Holy Scripture, you'll see he's never done anything wrong. It's not his fault if the Bridgerton brothers can't keep their mouths shut, is it? Sorry, Colin. Fife Live, here we go. This is the episode for Fife.
And keep your eyes peeled in season 3 because Bert Seymour, who plays Lord Fife, will be back.
He is back. Maybe not in the way we wanted him to be, but he'll be there. So, shall we get into the episode then? So we open our episode. Last week, the Bridgertons and Sharmas were away in Kent, and this week, the rest of the Ton are about to join them. We open to scenes of the Bridgerton staff frantically preparing for their arrival. Lady Whistledown is just as excited as we are for the trip to the country, as she says,
If the ancient Greeks were members of the Ton, they might have added to their Olympic pentathlon one additional event, the hosting of a country visit.
What's that, Lady Whistledown? Bringing up the ancient Greeks, are we? Seems like Colin isn't the only one who can't stop talking about Greece. And I do wonder why Lady Whistledown has such an interest in the country. It reminds me of last year when she kept mentioning Byron. Someone who has an interest in Byron and Greece. What an enigma.
And inside Aubrey Hall, Antony sabotages Ben's painting by eating forbidden fruit. I'm assuming this symbolism means nothing, but this isn't very important and it's not very Polin related. But here Benedict practices his new hobby of dramatically throwing open windows, a hobby I believe he discovered last episode.
Possibly doesn't mean anything, but as always, I love the way that Benedict handles his grumpy lovesick sibling. So, you know, it can always come in handy next year. But Lecky, why don't you keep an eye on Ben for us? See what else he gets up to in the episode. I think we're going to need cheering up at various points.
And before everyone starts arriving at Aubrey Hall, I just want to pop in on Kate and Edwina. Edwina is worrying about the repercussions of not receiving a proposal, and she says that suitors will suspect that there is something lacking in me when they discover that Viscount is no longer interested. This is a tragic reminder that there could still be repercussions from Colin's words in episode 8. I'm very curious about how they are going to handle that next season.
Do you think that Penn is going to write about it, though?
I kind of hope he finds out about it another way.
Same.
Yeah, same.
You know, I want her to have the upper hand. I've said this before, like how I don't want her to think that he loves her until he tells her that this time.
Yeah.
I don't think she's going to write about it because it was incredibly humiliating for her as well.
Yeah.
And while she doesn't have a hard time poking at herself, I feel like this is something that she is probably going to keep out because I don't think she wants Colin to know that she knows what he said. Even though he already fucking said it to a group of people. But, you know, I think that she's still, in a way, going to protect Colin.
Yeah.
And thus protect herself.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I think it would be super dramatic if she did publish, but I think it's more interesting if we, the audience, know that Penelope heard him and he doesn't know.
Right.
If she publishes it, it takes that conflict in public instead of being personal. So what could be this really quiet, intense moment between the two love interests will become this big public spectacle. And I think you'd lose the power. I completely agree with what you said about she doesn't want to hurt him. It isn't retaliatory. She doesn't want to wound him. She still cares about him. And also, like you say, Beans, it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
The Ton already think nothing of her, so why put herself through the humiliation?
Right. Another thing, too, is if she's so determined to get a husband next year, it's not going to benefit her to write about it.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. I like the idea that he doesn't remember what he said because he was drunk. He comes back, he doesn't understand. This is the other thing. Either it has to have happened off screen that she published, which dramatically doesn't work for a TV show like that to have the conflict off screen, or it's the first thing that she writes when he comes back, and it's like,
then that's too much time.
Why would she do that, like you say, if she's trying to find a husband? It's been such a long time. It's been like 8 months for her.
It's true.
In a different headspace. Yeah, I agree. Let him be confused. Let him think that it's something to do with Eloise. Also, like, she isn't the diamond, so it's not like she's going to have a fall from grace. They just laughed at her. It's not shocking news that Colin wouldn't want to be with her.
It's not shocking news that they've made fun of her before either.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, Pen. Let's cheer ourselves up because we're going to pop by Genevieve's shop. Last week, we saw Pen and Jen join forces to create the unstoppable force that is Penelope. Penelope?
Yes, Penelope.
Yes, a cursed word, but a beautiful friendship. We know the two businesswomen have teamed up, but here we get a peek at just how they're carrying it off. So Pen is no longer alone in delivering her edition to the printer. As Jen slips a draft into the fabric, you can just about read a snippet of the edition. And fans of the unnamed Modiste, I am devastated to tell you that Lady Whistledown has some terrible news for you, as she reports that Madame Delacroix is getting our Olympians ready for battle, namely the members of the Ton who are about to descend on Aubrey Hall. And you know what else that Genevieve has done?
Madame Delacroix has apparently tested her competition, putting the town's newest modiste nearly out of business.
Oh, poor Anemadice is almost ruined. Devastating. This little glimpse, though, is a reminder of just what Jen is getting out of this arrangement too. It's benefiting her business just as much as it's helping Penelope. Women help women, unless you're a Viennese seamstress. Whoops daisy. But we catch up with the Ton, who are all stuck in a traffic jam. Traffic jam, carriage jam, horse jam? Not horse jam, that sounds like...
That doesn't sound very good.
They're in some kind of jam. We find our lovely Pen with the rest of the family in the Featherington carriage as she's happily reading her edition of Whistledown. I do love how proud she always is of her work.
Yeah.
Of course, we can't see Pen in a carriage and not swoon at the future implications. And we will be seeing Colin in a carriage later too, although less happily, unfortunately. But if you're interested, you can also see the Featherington crest on the side of the carriage, a classic butterfly motif accompanied by the Latin motto, Felicitatem, roughly meaning happiness or fortunate. A member of the sub once theorised that this was a little hat tip to the long-lost sister Felicity, as the word felicity does share the same root as this motto, so everyone raise a glass of the sister that never was.
I kind of wonder if her lady's maid's going to be named Felicity.
Oh, maybe.
That would be cute.
I did wonder this.
Yeah.
It would be such a good nod, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It would send us all spiralling. In my head, she's just called Rosa, but that's just the actress's name.
Yeah.
Pen looks, in my opinion, absolutely stunning, but we will get into that in a minute. And soon it will be, because the horse jam finally clears and we are on our way to the Bridgertons. So here we are, finally at Aubrey Hall. The violinists are violining, the guests are beginning to arrive. The Aubrey Hall throwdown is officially underway. We get our first little glimpse of Colin in the episode as he's chatting with Eloise. And as Violet and Daphne greet a line of guests, we can spot our Featheringtons, including the lovely Penelope, waiting for their turn to be greeted into Aubrey Hall. But who else is there, Lecky?
In the queue, we see Fife standing behind Penelope, and I really think he's actually just fiddling with his cufflinks here, but it does...
No.
It does look slightly like he's looking at Penelope, so you can see why so many people were convinced he was going to be Colin's rival in season 3.
My theory, well, now that it's not a thing that's going to happen, but I loved the idea of Fife being that bully, but was like secretly in love with someone, and he bullies her because he wants her for himself. Incredibly toxic notion.
Whoa,
Incredibly toxic.
No.
Incredibly toxic notion.
Where is the bullying? Where is the bullying?
Yeah, we've really just taken this Fife thing and run with it, haven't we?
Listen, he's a little sassy bitch. He could be a little bully on the side.
Oh my god.
Listen, we have 21 minutes of fucking content with Polin. I gotta make stories up where I get them.
To contextualise, listeners, let us transport you back to April, May, June of 2022. Last year, when we knew it was Polin season in season 3, but we didn't have a synopsis, we had no idea what was going to happen. The fans absolutely convinced themselves, mostly because of what happens in this very episode. Season 3 was going to be Colin getting home from his travels. He was somehow going to be already in love with Penelope. We didn't really think that through. And Fife was going to have stolen his girl. And the reason we thought this is because he is constantly watching Pen in this episode.
Yes, and 100%, Bert Seymour didn't help the situation because
he's living it.
Yeah, because he would repost on his Instagram stories art of him flirting with Penelope and shit like that.
Yes, we were so excited.
Especially when they started filming.
Bert Seymour, we're grateful that you lead the Fife life for us. Lecky, I know that you're a Fife doubter in this moment, but I can't watch this scene without remaining absolutely certain that he is staring at Penelope. Like, look at the tilt of his head. He's stood to the side. He is watching her. I'm convinced.
He is positioned weirdly, like, out from the other extras, which is kind of odd. You know what I mean? They're all kind of towards the right, except for Fife. Just so you could see him towards the left of Penelope. I'm not going to go into this because I don't think he's looking at Penelope. But moments later, we do see Fife watching Penelope. So she's running down a little incline toward Eloise and Colin. Behind her, you can see Fife walking along the path, and this time it really does look like he's staring at her. Maybe Bert Seymour figured it would make sense for his character to glance in the direction of a lady running around. It does seem a bit unusual, but it's an odd moment that many people have taken an interest in.
Yeah. And I was such a Fife clown, was I, that I spent many happy hours spiraling over the fact that Fife is dressed in blue and yellow during this scene. I was like, there it is. They were simpler times. It was a happier time in the fandom this time last year. But I think he maybe is watching, but not because he's interested in Pen. I think he's interested maybe in Colin being interested in Pen.
That's
as we
a good
see
point.
In 208.
Because he's interested in her.
I mean, he could be. I always feel, now that I've had time with it, I think that Fife is like a barometer for the Ton. I feel like he is like the bar of where their feelings are.
Yeah, he's a gossipy bitch. He loves it.
I'd be throwing back martinis with that man, I'm telling you now, if I was in Bridgerton. If he approves of Colin and Pen next year, it's like the nod that Queen Charlotte does at the end of 208. If Fife sees Colin and Pen and nods, then it's like, yeah, they're happy ever after.
They have the seal of approval.
Yeah, exactly. But the Fife watch side, let's head down that hill because
Penelope Bridgerton is here.
And how is she looking, Veg?
Well, she's wearing green, hence the Penelope Bridgerton. As we know from future leaks, we think that's going to be sort of her Bridgerton colour, and that's the Polin's combined colour. And also in an interview with People, the costume designer Sophie Canali talked about this dress in particular, and she said that the green was a deliberate decision for Pen's arrival at Aubrey Hall to not only foreshadow the merging of the Featheringtons and the Bridgertons via Polin's marriage, but it was also a hint that Series 3 would be Pen and Colin's. She'd known about it for a long time, that it was their season, and she said it was just useful as a tool to know where your characters are going.
I think it's so interesting that she knew for a long time, because when we're breaking down their costumes in this season, it for a start makes this sound not so crazy, but you can learn a lot about their journey that they're going towards via what they're wearing. I love the details.
I mean, this whole episode was kind of like, if you didn't have any idea that it was going to be Polin next season, I feel like this was the turning point.
Yes, it's a turning point, exactly that. Yeah, definitely. Sure. But to return to the dress, I always thought that the exact shade of green was quite unusual, but when you watch 208 and you see the green mallet that Colin has, Beans, I'll make you do a comparison, the collage. I'm telling you, the colour of the green mallet is exactly the same shade as Penelope's dress here. And I'm just saying, the next time he's at Aubrey Hall, he's picking up a mallet, he's switching from his yellow and he's light green. It's like, oh, what does this light green remind me of? It's all connected.
I think she looks so pretty though. Her hair is so loose, her eyes are so blue, and she seems so confident. And
her hair is gorgeous.
I think her voice sounds definitely less girlish than normal. She's normally a bit like, oh, Colin, hi, when she's speaking to him. And I don't know about you guys, but I just love this look a lot. And I feel like until Colin ruins it, I feel like I'm watching a scene from like season 4 or beyond with Elle and Polin hanging out at Aubrey Hall. And it makes me very emotional.
Yes, it is. It's like a little flash forward to the future. By the way, in case you missed it, in the moments before Pen arrived, Eloise was chastising Colin about his travel, saying you should consider yourself lucky to even go travelling. But thankfully, Pen is here to rescue Elle from Colin. And how's Colin looking?
So he's in his signature baby blue look. I think in my mind, especially in this scene, baby blue is sort of correlated with baby behaviour. And we see this with what he announces in this scene.
I feel like it's very apt that he goes to Romney Hall in this baby blue and giving what Marina tells him at the end.
Yes.
I think that all ties together.
Exactly.
He is a boy.
Yeah. But he does also, as a cute little other point, if you look closely, you can see his waistcoat is covered in tiny little flowers, which is a sweet nod towards his journey to Romney Hall and the friendship he'll make with everyone's favourite botanist, Plant
Daddy! Speaking of Plant Daddy, this whole scene is layered with Philoise shadowing as opposed to Polin foreshadowing, sadly. Elle says she's begun talking to the trees. Colin asks Pen if Eloise is calling him wooden. And Eloise makes a pretty dark reference to the dangerous waters that were reinforced when we see that lake over at Romney Hall. But Pen insists that Eloise is not calling him wooden. And I think it's adorable how Colin turns to Pen for a bit of light-hearted reassurance. Like you say, Veg, it's a little glimpse at future Polin with their good friend Steve.
Steve. And might I point out, Colin is still looking very tanned in this scene from his travels. It's quite a tanned look. So it shows that he retains tan. Does this mean he'll be tanned for the whole of season 3? It's pretty hard to tell from the preview shots, but I'm excited to see. I know Italy, Spain and France aren't quite as hot as Greece, but still pretty hot. What do we think?
I'm fine with the tan.
Beans?
I like the tan.
He definitely looks tan in the pilot.
I'm fine with it.
You like the tan?
He's definitely tanned when he gets back.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to retain it as much. But Colin makes the dig at Elle about her going to read another pamphlet on women's rights, and Pen, who has been doing everything she can to steer Elle away from anything to do with the pamphlets, suggests that Elle is quite done with that. But Colin reveals that she's brought them with them over to Aubrey Hall. Remember, a suspicious Colin spotted her with it in last week's episode.
Yes.
And he seems very well informed on the matter at the moment.
Very observant of him.
Very observant. Pen is a bit annoyed to hear that Elle is still on with her printer hunt and once again tries to steer Elle away, but Elle reveals that she's quite taken with the pamphlet and name drops Theo, who we saw earlier in the episode helping with the Lady Whistledown goings on. Pen is straight on it and warns Elle about being in dangerous waters that side of town.
Bit hypocritical of her.
It is a nice little Polin scene, but it's also painful because we all know it's going to end with Colin admitting that he's going to see be Marina. But there is a bright side here. Basically, Penelope scolds Eloise when she learns that she's still making trips to unsavory parts of town. What happens next is interesting because Colin reveals that he also disapproves of Elle's behavior, but he leaves Penelope to handle the problem. It's implied he's spoken with Elle already and has at least temporarily given up reasoning with her, leaving Penelope to step in. But as readers of Romancing Mr. Bridgerton know, Colin is very passionate about the issue of Penelope wandering around alone, so I expect he won't drop the issue so quickly when he learns Penelope is also taking similar risks.
Yeah, he fully knows what Elle's been up to, which shows that he's been paying very close attention, which definitely gives credence to the theory that he's going to accuse her next year. I do think it's interesting that he knows it's doing nothing to stop her. He's like, you go around Bloomsbury, love, all you like. But he really doesn't seem all that concerned. Not that I think he'd be able to stop her. But we find out that Colin is going away for the day. And whilst I'm pleased to know that he's not joining any hunt and not killing any little baby rabbits, because that would break my Colin heart into pieces, we are all gutted to learn that Colin is going to break our hearts in a different way by following through on Elle's tip from last week that Marina lives nearby. Note that as Colin tells Penelope that he's going to see her cousin, he looks away.
Yeah.
He can't quite meet her eye in it. And I think this gives a little bit of weight to the moment that we'll see in 207 when Marina gets brought up between the two of them and they share a very heavy look between them. So he's clearly still uncomfortable with the idea of bringing Marina up around Penelope.
Yeah.
Eloise makes a comment about not being the only one to get into dangerous waters, and Penelope gives such a sad little worried look at Colin as he bows.
A little face.
Yeah.
She's so upset, isn't she?
When she brings up Marina, it's like, it's such a sad face, but also quite funny. It's like despairing.
She's like, you fucking kidding me?
Finally thought she'd have to worry about Marina.
But we haven't got time to dwell because Violet is going to come and sweep the two girls away.
You know what? I do want to add something. We have a little reduce, reuse, recycle. Violet Bridgerton, the dress that she's wearing, will be seen in season 3 on one of the Ton members.
That is true. So yeah, Violet swoops in and grabs both Pen and Elle, trying to convince them to interact with the other ladies in attendance. And there's an amusing moment here where Violet tries to persuade them to socialize by suggesting they may overhear some gossip. And Pen replies that she would not dream of doing anything different. In other words, she wouldn't dream of missing out on the gossip.
Yeah, I love how happy Violet is to include Pen. She's such a great judge of character, I feel anyway. And I do love how she encourages them to collect gossip. I think this shows that maybe she'll have a good reaction to the Lady Whistledown reveal, maybe.
We can only hope. A good reaction, or she'll help set the pyre on fire. But we do know that Violet pays a lot of attention to Peneloise, as she brought it up in Queen Charlotte when she notices that they're estranged from one another.
So we're going to follow Colin, but before we do, I just want to pop over to catch up with Benedict, who is having the time of his life watching Antony make a fool of himself in front of Kate. I just love Benedict's reactions in the background during this conversation about whether Kate should join the men on the hunt. He is so amused by the mess that his brother has walked into, and I just can't wait to see similar behavior from Benedict in season 3 when he realizes the extent of chaos Colin's plans.
Benedict's going to have a larger part in season 3. And I think that that's very telling for who may be season 4.
Oh, it's true, that's how it goes.
So it'll be interesting because he's clearly going to be more involved in Polin's story, but it feels like that's just kind of how Benedict has been every season. He's sort of on the outskirts of every sibling's relationships, just reacting. So it will be interesting to see if he steps up a little bit more and possibly maybe comes to Colin's defense with Antony or something like that. And if there's like a really good bonding moment between Colin and Ben and Antony, all three of ABC together, you know?
Ben here is very enjoying the spectacle and letting Antony flounder a little bit. And I can imagine that to an extent he'll do that with Colin, but he also doesn't want to see his siblings ruin their own lives.
Yes.
Well, and Ben was kind of the only one who picked up a little bit on Colin's sort of attitude towards everything. I mean, it took Colin just being pretty vague, but depressingly vague in the last episode for Benedict to like finally pick it up, whereas Colin is a little bit more intuitive. So I'm wondering if Ben will understand that Colin is very different from Antony and he's very different from himself.
He needs that emotional support, and I don't think Ben wants to watch him ruin his own life. I think there'll come a point where he'll step in and sit down with him and offer him some very good advice about always being able to recognise exactly what is right in front of you the whole time, and make sure you're not blind to things that are screamingly obvious, because Benedict has that, he has that wisdom, you know. But speaking of Colin, we find him in his carriage. Yay! But unfortunately, it's on its way to Romney Hall as it pulls up outside. And now he's got a nice little top hat on, which I like is a nice little addition. But God knows what is going through his mind. What do you initially think he hoped for from the trip when he stepped out of that carriage? How do you think he thought that this was going to go?
To be honest, like the way he talks to Marina, it's almost like he expects her to say that she also regretted the way things ended with them and that she'd rather be with him. And I hate that. I just don't even want to think about it.
Yeah.
I really think that he thought it was going to be like a Gretna Green part 2. Like she was going to be like, oh yeah, like this was, you are obviously
this was a mistake.
Yeah, you're obviously the person for me, and like everything I said previously, blah 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 blah. I think he's still holding on to that a lot because he doesn't want his feelings to be untrue. And they weren't. Like, his feelings were incredibly valid, and he felt that love and everything, or, you know.
He thought he felt that love.
Exactly.
Right.
But it wasn't the same. It wasn't reciprocated. That wasn't Marina's intent.
In his defense, I feel like he spent so much time during his travels thinking about Marina and the regret that he was left with and having no closure, that I think maybe he convinced himself that he needed to go back to her and try to pick up that relationship, even though obviously that's a mistake and what he didn't need. He's just lost.
He's confused by it, isn't he? Because I think he wants to go back and be able to do something about it, and in his head, going back and being like, I'll save you again, is him being able to do something
hero Colin.
when actually what he needs, and we will get into it. He wants to be able to take action because he wasn't able to. He completely left her to it. Anthony stopped him from seeing her. And like you say, like he spent months away thinking about it and trying to figure it out because it was such a confusing situation for him that what he does need is closure, and he will get it maybe in a not the nicest way possible, but he'll get that closure. But at the moment, he doesn't know that that's what he needs.
As he steps out of his carriage, he is immediately comforted, we hope, by the sight of the yellow exterior of Romney Hall. I wonder who it could remind him of. A friend, perhaps? And perhaps Colin will make a new friend here.
Indeed, it's a very similar orangey yellow to the Pall Mall mallet that Eloise chose last week. A little bit of Philoise for you. But as Colin stares up at the house, he gathers himself and heads on in, and he sits and waits for Marina, and he's nervously fidgeting with his baby blue clothes, clearly unable to get comfortable or to settle. I really love these tiny attention to details that Luke Newton includes throughout this whole trip to Romney, showing how unsure of himself Colin is throughout the entire interaction. And Marina walks into the room, baby in arms, and...
Emphasizing that he is still stuck in the past, Colin completely flubs his greeting here, first calling her Marina, then Miss Thompson, and finally Lady Crane. Thanks. I hate it. But Colin makes up for it moments later, acting completely adorable when he meets baby Oliver. Again, we see that same open-mouthed amazement that we saw last episode. I must admit, however, that I may or may not have used clips from this scene in a crack edit where I was challenged to make Colin look creepy. I thought that was impossible. He literally coos at babies, but somehow managed to create a very short little edit that implied he'd rather eat babies than coo at them. I am so sorry, Colin.
Very Greek myth of you.
But then they move over to the sofa to sit, and our beloved Colin, as he takes his seat, waves at baby Oliver, which is just the cutest thing.
I was really bad for him in this scene though, because I think it's so strange that he goes back and those kids would have been his had he married her. And that's such a strange thing for him to have to get his head around.
Right.
And then to add an extra layer to that, Amanda and Oliver will end up being his family.
Yes.
Yeah. He'll end up being their uncle when Eloise marries him. So in a weird way, he's like meeting his future niece and nephew.
Yeah.
See, I don't think he considered that. When he went, I don't think he considered the fact that Marina had babies, because when he last saw her, she was pregnant, but
not visibly,
she wasn't really showing and everything. Yeah.
She says that he is stuck in the past and he is quite literally. He doesn't really consider that she has a new reality.
He's stuck in the idea that he had of her. Marina tells Colin that Philip is out studying his flowers, and Colin apologises for turning up unannounced, explaining that he was staying nearby when he found out how close they lived, and I bet Marina is regretting ever telling Eloise where she lived. But Colin says that he just thought he'd come and see that she was well, and then he kind of stumbles over his words. He's so burdened by everything that happened, but Marina reassures him that she is well, and she very clearly has moved forward with her life and is doing pretty well. She's the lady of the household, and she's pleased to see him. So the two of them sit down for tea together. Colin is busy doing what he does best, or perhaps all he really knows how to do at the moment, which is talk about Greece.
Colin is so sheepish in this scene. He talks up his travels in Greece, then starts to worry that he may be talking too much. I just feel so badly for him.
Oh, the entire scene breaks my heart because Marina's clearly not interested, but she's trying to still be polite at this point. She hasn't quite broken like she will later and snap at him. And she says, it sounds like a remarkable journey that he's been on. To which Colin replies, remarkable, yes, in that I seem to have many remarks about it. Do I not? And the way he twists the word remarks just makes me want to sob.
Yeah, like you said, it's so clear that he thinks that no one is interested in what he has to say beyond Penn. But again, we've got a mental block there with Colin. But yeah, the sad little way he also then puts down his little teacup when he starts to become really self-conscious. Just, yeah, it makes me so sad.
Yeah, Penn is definitely the only one who finds his stories truly interesting. But it's also a bit more than that. I think his stories are a way of covering up to himself as much to anybody else that he really struggled a lot while he was away, something that Penelope did pick up on. Ben sort of picked up on the tiniest bit. Luke Newton said that a lot of Colin's storytelling was pretense, and it was coming from a place of feeling like that's how he was supposed to feel after returning from his travels rather than something he actually felt like. But I really think that in this scene, the truth breaks out of Colin. I think it's a really vulnerable moment for Colin here because he's back in front of the woman who did all that damage that made him run away in the first place. And I think Marina broke his sense of judgment and his confidence within himself. And he's been unsure of himself ever since then. Like the details of like putting the teacup down and being so unsure and nervous in his voice. This Colin is going to be miles away from the swagger we're expecting in 301. And I think it's an important reminder that season 2 was a huge struggle for him, something that I often think gets overlooked for his character. The whole season, he's drowning and no one but Penn really notices it.
But then Philip arrives. Things start to look up when Colin's future plant bestie walks in.
Yeah, Plant Daddy walks through that door. He takes his hat off. He gives us a smile, wins all our hearts, including Colin's. Love at first sight is real, my friends. So Philip gives a tiny look to Marina because he surely knows all this Marina drama and he's very well aware that this is her ex-fiance that's just turned up out of the blue. Mm-hmm. But he's so chilled out.
Yeah.
He's so welcoming and accommodating.
I forgot how lovely his voice is.
He's just the nicest, I think he's the nicest character in the entire show. Colin is a little bit unsure about the arrival of Marina's husband, and he says that Philip's wife has let him drone on about his recent Grecian adventures. And look what happens. Philip is all over it. He genuinely is interested in his Greek travels. Colin, babe, you found your audience. And immediately starts chatting about the olive orchards in Lesbos. Colin makes his iconic plant pun then. Penn would lap this right up. And you know who else laps this right up? Our dear Beans, because this is your favourite line, isn't it?
It's my favourite line in the entire franchise.
What is it, Beans?
I oiled my way right in. That was an olive joke. I love it.
I'm glad that you've given it such a rapturous reaction because it falls so flat.
Yes.
I laughed out loud when he first said it. I just love it so. It's just, Colin is so charming and we don't get to see a lot of that. And so I'm so excited to see him be charming with plant puns in season 3. Or whatever puns.
Any puns. Mm-hmm. Any puns. Marina does not laugh at Colin's joke, yet another sign that they would likely have been miserable together.
Yeah, been terrible. And Philip doesn't laugh either, but that's only because he's so taken with the sorts of trees that he gets really adorably distracted. They both have this gorgeous little bonding moment over trees, and it's an actual conversation where they're both interested in each other's thoughts. Fancy that. And Philip insists that he must show Colin his copy of Flora Graeca. Marina looks extremely unimpressed by the two geeking out together and is even less thrilled when Philip invites Colin for dinner. She really thought she could get Colin out of the door, but he's oiled his way in and you won't be getting rid of him that easily. So Colin's settling himself in at Romney Hall, but we're back at the garden party at Aubrey Hall to see what Elle and Penn are getting up to. Penn and Elle are sitting at a table with a group of young ladies.
Penn is drinking lemonade and looking like a goddess, and Elle looks like she'd rather be anywhere else. But Penn can't contain her smile when one of the other ladies in attendance shares that Lady Whistledown is a source of happiness in her life. When one of the other ladies then states that Lady Whistledown will not be able to publish anything of note that week, as she's presumably not in attendance, Penn replies, "Is that so?" This is another little glimpse of Penn's recklessness, as we know that she does later go on to publish news about the 2 engagements she witnessed during this trip. A very dangerous move since the Queen is actively hunting her.
We were saying last week, it's kind of a reckless move that she makes.
For sure.
When it's almost a point of pride for her. And Nicola did say that Penelope gets a little bit ahead of herself in this series, which we'll see culminate when she lets slip to Eloise, and that's how Eloise pieces it all together. But is she going to be more careful? Is there going to be a challenge that she just can't back down from, where she can't stop herself, which is what happened in the books? She couldn't leave it and she had to publish, and that's where she made the mistake.
It's one of Penn's vices, unfortunately. Like, she loves a challenge. She also loves to spite people. And
she's proud of her work.
Yeah.
And she hates it to be challenged.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's just, like, I really was sitting there and I was like, Penn, you need to watch yourself a little bit. You're getting a little too cocky.
Dial it down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Before we return to Romney Hall, there's just a little costuming detail I found interesting. While practicing her lawn bowling, Prudence appears to be wearing a necklace and earrings with oranges on them. And later this episode, she ends up getting caught alone with Cousin Jack in the orangery. Back at Romney Hall, the two plant besties are poring over a copy of Flora Graeca, and Colin points out his favorite flowers on the page. So when not staring at a single blade of grass, Colin was apparently soaking in the sight of cornipifolia, which, if you are not aware, are a cute little yellow flower, also known as brass buttons. Remind you of anyone, Colin?
She's cute as a button.
But to bring the mood back down, sorry listeners. In this scene, Marina is somewhat dismissive of Philip. You can tell that they get on, but it's clearly not a loving relationship, and again just reinforces the idea that Colin likely would not have been happy with Marina.
I hate how Marina treats Philip in this scene. This is Philip's passion. It's his life's work. And he has given up the rest of his life to help Marina. It kills me that she puts him down in this way. The reason that happens is because Colin really needs to have it slapped in his face that this is not the life that you wanted, because they make Colin and Philip so similar that it's a similar passion. But like we were saying earlier about Philoise, because this is such a Philoise episode, I can't wait to see Eloise be just absolutely fascinated. It's those two intellectuals, and you know that he's going to be just as interested by what she's interested in.
Yeah, I think he would encourage her interests rather than trying to stifle them like the rest of her family. So
I've said before that she has the best journey of every single sibling. Yeah. Because what is better than seeing someone who is so against the idea of being loved, so resistant to love, who thinks that it isn't a world for her to fall in love? Like, that's beautiful. Right. Like, that's such a journey.
Also because she doesn't want to be the typical, like, woman in love, you know? She doesn't really necessarily want to be a mother. She wants to be able to have her own passions and own things. And I think that with Philip, that's why they're having him in a direction of someone who's so passionate about something.
Yeah. Just imagine, like, the dramatic conflict in their season where Eloise realizes the one thing that she has been fighting against, that she actually finds happiness with someone else who does support her interests and does want to form a partnership with someone, but doesn't feel, like, imprisoned.
Yeah.
Because she fears that marriage is this prison. But if she finds, like, this freedom with him, it's going to be great.
But I think that's why Polin will play such an interesting role in Eloise, because one of the reasons, like, we've seen in this season, that it's not that she can't love and doesn't want to love. She has a thing for Theo. It's just she's so scared that marriage will be a prison where she can't be herself, where it's going to contain her. And that's what she fears the most. She fears being contained and having her wings clipped. But if she sees that Penelope hopefully is able to continue her writing with Colin, being married to Colin, she'll see that Penelope being married isn't a prison for Penelope. It's an expansion of her world. It's an expansion of her life and herself. And she still has a freedom, but she has the benefit of being in love. So Penelope going ahead of Eloise in that respect, I think will help reconcile a little bit of that fear for Eloise.
I mean, speaking of Polin, in order to sort of get us back over there.
On what, about the Polin podcast?
Yeah.
Never.
That's kind of why I don't want Lady Whistledown to be revealed next season, because that will also then lead to Eloise seeing that she's still able to work and have her dreams and everything, because Polin are living that out.
Penelope has a lot of work to do with refining what Lady Whistledown is. I think she makes mistakes at the moment with what it is, and we've said before, she needs to reconcile the two parts of her personality and start recognising that she is Lady Whistledown is her, but she cares about it so deeply, to a fault almost, we see in this episode. Right. It's such a core part of her that to give up on that would be a huge blow. So I agree, let's not have the reveal yet, but we'll talk about that in the future. Yet, time to say goodbye to Sir Philip. Just before we do, a quick note, this cheers you up about the entire trip to Romney Hall, is that Luke Newton thought that this meeting was incredibly important for Colin, and in the long run, his relationship with Sir Philip is more important to Colin's development as a character than the temporary reconciliation with Marina. He said that Colin felt validated by his interaction with Sir Philip, and that this was a really intimate moment that stuck with Colin and made him see that he could create a life for himself. And he also liked that this was a geekier side to Colin, where he's not just a charming, empty-headed character. He has passions and he has interests, and this slightly nerdier plant one side to him. But when Sir Philip has left to say goodnight to the twins, Colin comments on how amiable he is, and Marina does not take well to this. It seems she's dropped the strained politeness of earlier in the day. She's had a long day of the two of them, and she outright asks him why he came to Romney Hall in the first place. And Colin says that he came to apologise. He says that throughout his travels, he kept pondering how I left things between us, all of those terrible things I said to you. We did talk about this last season in 107, when Colin had his confrontation with Marina. I think the worst thing he said was that she was a cruel woman. So I think he's being a bit harsh on himself, that he seems to have convinced himself that he was to blame for all of this. And I think he's got so confused. And then he comes to apologise to her. He should be apologising to anyone. But Marina says, I do not need your apology any more than I desire your forgiveness. All of this, you and I, is in the past. And I hate that Marina doesn't give Colin an apology here when it's so clear that that's what he needs. It's so clear that he's confused and he's turned up at a door and he needs closure. And I think he deserved that apology. And he ultimately has to make it through without ever getting one.
Yeah.
Last week, Colin alluded to the questions that seem to linger. And this is what's plagued him. He says, do you not look at your life and wonder what might have been had we conducted ourselves differently? And Marina says it's a fool's form of torture. And once again, that allusion to Colin being made a fool in this situation, which has come up repeatedly for him. And in a way, he does get that closure here, but it's done in the most painful way possible, as Marina absolutely annihilates him by saying, you're a boy caught up in his own fantasies. So much of Marina for Colin was about him wanting to be taken seriously as a man. So to be reduced to a boy is absolutely brutal. And she also attacks his desire to save people, which really cuts deep. And she accuses him, crucially, of being caught up in his own fantasies.
Yeah, lots of talk of fantasies. And it's very interesting and something that we've had it throughout, it's not just this scene. It's mentioned loads. And that we definitely think it's going to play out in season 3. We are, or at least I am, but I think we are begging for a dream sequence.
Not in his wildest fantasies. So remember, Marina told Penn that her love was an unrequited fantasy. And of course, we all remember what Colin said at the end of 208. I think season 3 is going to be about both of them letting go of their fantasies and ideas of what they wanted from their future and what they thought of each other. And so he does need to be pulled out of it, the mistaken dream he has about who Marina was to him, the life he wanted, who he is as a person, and everything about his trip to Romney confronts him with the reality of what he would have been. So he does need to be pulled out, but Marina does it completely brutally when she says, I refuse to be thrust back into such a world of fantasy. You need to wake up, Colin.
And if you ever needed more evidence that Colin is oblivious about the fact that Penn is in love with him, here you go. When Marina suggests that he makes Penelope happy, Colin is visibly confused and almost taken aback. He doesn't know what to make of that statement.
Luke said that one of the reasons he was so distracted in this moment and unable to focus on the comment about Penelope was that his ego was still reeling from being called a boy. And he said that this moment cut very deep within Colin. But yeah, like you say, evidence that Colin has no idea. Luke also thought that this was an important scene to help Colin put the situation to bed, and both him and the director worked to make this a moment where Colin was able to change focus and to really try and move past the guilt and the confusion that he struggled with. So it's harsh, but it's a big turning point for him.
Yeah. And then Colin bids Marina farewell as Marina, that later when referring to her, he calls her Lady Crane. And we know earlier in the scene he was struggling with what to call her. And this may just be a matter of speaking to someone directly versus referring to them. However, maybe it's some hope. It could be a good sign of him finally sort of starting to let go a bit. Like he recognises her as Lady Crane.
I think we need cheering up after all that, though, because that was savage.
But I do love this scene.
The next scene, yes, because next evening we've got the annual Hearts and Flowers Ball that we've been promised. Do we think we're going to get another one?
Yeah.
The part of this, the orangery, was filmed at Rest Park, wasn't it?
Rest Park will be returning, but it might not be Hearts and Flowers, because it was filmed during the day. From what we've seen, the leaks at Rest Park. Another thing to note, too, is that they will use the same locations, but use different rooms. I think somebody pointed it out, that they use a library and a dance room or something. That's where the lights were pointing in.
But in Aubrey Hall, it's looking gorgeous, with parties well underway, and Penelope is arm in arm with her best friend, Eloise, and Colin is nowhere to be seen.
Oh my good lord, this outfit. So, Penn's outfit here, which is a gorgeous pink dress, actually won the reddit.com/r// Colin Bridgerton outfit game. It won overall, getting 65% of the vote against the other finalist, which is the Yellow Daisies look of 207, which I will also gush about at the time. And we also pitted it against the winner of Colin's outfit game, which was Fencing Colin from a couple of episodes ago. And it is just so gorgeous. We love her in pink. Her chest is chesting for sure here. As a user on Reddit called Amber Brainwaves said, if there is one thing I've learned about these polls, meaning the outfit game, the less the actors can breathe, the more people like it.
Except for Colin with his white shirt.
Oh yeah, on women only. And her makeup is so beautiful. And even though her hair is up, which, you know, we're definitely more loosey-goosey baby, it's still kind of loose. Her jewellery is delicate and floral. God, in my opinion, and in the collective democratic opinion of the subreddit, it is her best look. So, of course, Colin doesn't get to see it. This is classic Shondaland torture. She looks so good. She's not fucking there. So I do have some hope, because we know that the Featheringtons reuse dresses.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
So we could maybe please see this dress in season 3. Maybe, please.
I would also love to see Portia's dress again, because another stunner from Portia. She looks so
I like
good.
that her gloves match her like almost wallpapery pink dress.
Mm-hmm. Nicola said she was actually surprised by how pretty Pen's dress was in this scene, because it's just so beautiful and intricate. And the costume designers for season 2 said that pink for Penelope is a colour of her independence. So this is something we actually saw in Vauxhall in 101 when Portia wasn't there to accompany Penelope, so she was able to wear a dress of her own choosing. So we get to see a little bit more of Penelope's style, because later in this season we'll see Pen in a bit more pink, because Portia has less of a hold over Penelope as she's distracted by first Philippa in the season and then later Prudence as she gets engaged to Jack. I think her hairstyle is so unique. It's almost ethereal and like nymph-like, and I think that she tried so hard to put this outfit together to look incredible, because she was certain that Colin would be there, because it's Aubrey Hall, it's his family seat, of course he's going to be at the Hearts and Flowers, and he didn't fucking turn up. But Lecky, I can see that you're fit to burst, so I feel as if you're going to have some opinions here.
Well, I know this is blasphemy, but this is not my favorite of Penelope's dresses this season. I will forever be salty that this dress somehow won over my beloved Daisy dress from 207. She does look beautiful, but I digress.
I mean, neither of those were my favorite. I voted for the green dress.
I go backwards and forwards, but I think I'm with you on 207, but we will get there in a few weeks. Eloise and her suitor dance after Penelope pushes her into it, saying it would entertain her and that Penelope will be able to hear about it. Is Lady Whistledown pushing Eloise into dancing to get, the bit of content perhaps? But Penelope also asked if Eloise has spoken to Colin about his visit with Marina yet, so showing that Colin hasn't shown his face today.
Yes.
But Violet pulls Lord Morrison over and Elle is forced to dance in misery. And Penelope at first thinks it's quite funny. She stands with Violet and laughs at her best friend. But then it all goes south for Pen and Elle when Elle argues with her suitor, gets incredibly upset, storms off, the night is over. And as a side note, to return to our Fife watch, just want to say that fans absolutely convince themselves, and by fans I mean us, and by us I mean me, that Fife could be seen watching Penelope throughout this whole dance. It's the tiniest little glimpses. And we drew like diagrams. Do you remember this?
I'm on that train.
We drew diagrams. We were like, he was looking at this angle. And if you think about it, Penelope would have been standing there. We were so convinced.
Yeah, because he's watching Finn.
Honestly, those were the happier times. But once Eloise has stormed off, Penelope is left completely by herself, watching over the ton. And I love the symbolism. I love that it's a very famous picture of Penelope as she stands away from everyone else, observing. And while she's busy observing everyone in the ton, she spots her family up to no good. Lecky, what's going on?
So Portia rounds up a group of guests and decides to give them a tour of the Bridgerton's orangery, which seems a bit weird. How often do you go to someone else's house as a guest and then offer to give other people a tour? Anyway, we have another little Fife sighting. One thing I love about this sequence is that obviously Fife needs to be in this scene because Portia lured Cousin Jack to the orangery by claiming Fife wanted to speak with him. But I just love that Fife was like, oh yeah, tour of the orangery sounds good. He just always up for a party, but I guess he also really likes orangeries or tours. I don't know.
Or gossip.
I guess he's always up for a good time. Our Fife.
And just by Fife's side, Penelope also rushes in to see what's going on, and she is completely taken aback at what is happening with her family drama. And I tell you now, at the time, we were beyond besides ourselves at the idea that Fife was standing so close to Penelope.
Delusional.
But also, do you know what confuses me about this entire plot? The idea is that Jack's been caught with Prudence, right? And it's like, scandal. But they live together.
Yeah.
Surely they're alone together literally all of the time.
Yeah.
But I suppose the insinuation that Portia's making here is that they've been up to no good. But where was Colin this whole evening? Who's missed out on all the drama? He was crying in his bedroom. Bless his little heart. Can I just say, sorry, do you think Penn thought that Colin was going to dance with her?
Yes.
That's so
God
sad.
damn it. Yes, probably.
Yeah.
You know, she pushes Eloise into dancing because she says that
She's not gonna, yeah.
she basically implies that she's not going to get an opportunity to do so. Just break my heart in half, why don't you?
Colin, she tried so hard and he just wasn't there. You got some ground to make up for, love.
Back inside Aubrey Hall, Penelope corners Prudence as they're heading upstairs after Prudence's surprise engagement.
Yeah, and in this scene, she sort of seems to kind of sympathise with Prudence, asks her if he tried any funny business, and gives her a chance to be nice. It does remind me of 201, where we see her kind of considering whether she's going to start helping her family a bit more. Then her family are all dicks to her, so she kind of loses that idea. But I kind of get the same thing here. Like, Prudence really comes off badly, and it shows us that she is always sort of willing to give people the benefit of the doubt and see the best in people where possible. Prudence obviously spoils it with what she says here. She says that she's jealous.
Yeah, I really hate Prudence's behavior here. Prudence is also so confident that Lady Whistledown is going to write about the engagement that I almost wish Penn hadn't.
Yeah.
I do have to say, I was a little bit critical of Penn in this scene too, because Penn makes a comment about how, like, this could ruin their family, and she goes, it's not just comments on our citrus dresses or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, but Penn, you already did that last season. Like, you know, like, you saw it from the perspective of you're saving Colin, but you also threw your family to the wind on that shit.
It's like she has in her mind like a hierarchy of importance, doesn't she? So when it's to save Colin, she'll do anything.
Yeah.
And I think this is something we're going to see in season 3 is that there is no limit ultimately that she will not go to for him.
Yeah. And listen, I get it. I mean, this is bringing up an actual Tuba story now that I'm thinking about it. I can
Tuba boy. He's not coming back, is he?
Well, first of all, he's moved to the city that I live in now.
Oh my god, you're going to be the second chance love trope.
No, he's in a relationship. They've been together forever, and that's fine.
Well, you'll be the second chance love trope.
Getting stale.
Anyway.
I'm kidding. Sorry, I'm wishing good thoughts to Tuba Boy, his partner.
Anyway, back in the day, again, we had AIM Instant Messenger and everything. I used to, like, tell him straight up when, like, the girl that I hated that he was seeing cheated on him or something, or was, like, flirting with other guys. Like, I immediately reported it to him and then just, like, threw her under the bus because I was like, it's all for love. It'll all pay off one day. And I feel like that's kind of what Penn thinks, too. Like, it's all for love. It'll all pay off one day.
Yeah, I don't think Penn wants to be ruined just for nothing, and especially I don't think she wants to be ruined just for the sake of Prudence of all people,
right?
But I wonder what's going to have happened over the off season that's going to have made Penelope completely give up on her family as well, because part of her motivation is to get away from her family, and it's moments like this be like, you totally justified, Penn.
Yeah,
maybe not to you being so.
I love Penn. I felt a couple of times in this episode that she was just being a bit hypocritical. That's all.
And we're getting there in just a second, because after a quick segue where we learnt that once again the Featheringtons are in financial catastrophe because Jack, who would have guessed it, is a complete and utter fraud, we're gonna go over for our favourite scene of our favourite episode. Someone put me out of my misery, because we have, I mean, do we even have to, can we just end the episode here? Thank you for coming to What's Our Polin podcast. We'll see you all next week. Bean, see us out.
Barely even friends. Then somebody bends unexpectedly.
Sadly, it's time. Vegetable, what's going to happen?
So, fans and non-fans refer to this as the Beauty and the Beast scene, mainly for aesthetic reasons. Well, fully for aesthetic reasons. What am I saying?
Yes, certainly not the rousing love story, is it?
So their outfits are very similar to the ones that Belle and the Beast wear in the ball scene in the Disney classic. It's also on a staircase. There's a big grandfather clock. Great vibes. But unlike that happy scene, these are dark, dark days for Polin. It was dark times, Harry, dark times. So Colin has missed our magnificent, beautiful hearts and flowers dress, and this is what he sees. And I'm sorry, this is going to be really bitchy, but I just don't like, come on. He sees this. This is what I will less than affectionately refer to as beau bitch dress, because I'm angry. She looks cute, great, but it's just not a look, is it? There's just too much going on. There's a, like, pink cord that could be the things that you put, like, fancy chaiselongs have, like, long cylindrical
like
cushions.
The trimming.
It's one of them. Yeah, the trimming on that. There's a bow.
Not a singular bow, about 40 bows.
There's a few bows. There's
a lot of bows here.
It's such a major regression from Hearts and Flowers.
Yeah. And I'm sure Beans and Lecky will love this outfit.
I literally just pointed out there's 40 bows on it. I'm sorry, no.
I don't like this outfit. In fact, I think I was upset that outfit kept getting voted for because I hated it.
You've seen sense.
And context is everything. I think it's a miserable scene, so we feel miserable about it. And I think it's such a deliberate choice to regress Penn in this moment because Colin's vision is still completely clouded. He's still very much caught up in everything that's just happened. We saw him when Marina brought Penelope up. He was like, what are you talking about? And now in this moment when Colin sees Penelope, he's just like, I'm not anywhere in that headspace to see you as a romantic interest.
Yeah.
Penelope's soft waves have been traded again for tight curls, giving her a girlish appearance again at the worst possible time and during the worst possible scene. As mentioned in the last episode, this is the dress that we think looks similar to the doll in the nursery.
So if Colin is looking at Penelope and seeing her as a childhood friend who reminds him of his past, and he's just been wounded by being accused of being a boy, then this is definitely not what he's ready to see Penelope as a future love interest.
We had the green at the beginning of the episode, which is sort of like Polin, but this is just complete opposite. There's no green tones to either of their outfits, and to me this says they're far apart again at this point. It's not a good spot for them.
Yeah, so it's kind of like they've taken a giant step forward and immediately took 2 steps back, because the green dress that Penn arrived in was meant to foreshadow their future union, and now we feel this gulf between them as they revert back to their former colors. And if that wasn't enough, Penn is also standing above Colin on the stairwell, basically towering over him. Not only does this emphasize how low and weighed down Colin is feeling, but it also visibly demonstrates that he's feeling both the weight of his and Lady Whistledown's actions.
But I will say that Colin looks incredible in this scene with his dark velvet, and it is the only redeeming part of it.
I've called it a feast of a blue outfit.
He's gone moody blue. Overall, it's just a recipe for disaster. But Colin is walking down the stairs. He's completely lost in thought. We know he didn't show up at the Hearts and Flowers. And Penelope stops him and he turns around and you can see on his face that he really, really, really doesn't want to speak to her. Not because he doesn't want to be around her, but he just wants to be alone. And Penelope says that they missed him at the ball last night, and he says that he wasn't up to it, which, if Penn was ready to read his signals, she would gather that he didn't want to speak and wanted to be left alone. But Penelope here needles him about his trip with Marina. She's trying to get information, but what she really wants to know is, perhaps seeing her was what you needed, to leave the past behind, to no longer feel the need to forswear women. And what she's doing here is similar to what she did in 202.
Get over her and under someone else.
And so what she's doing is here what she did in 202, where she was coming at this from a romantic angle of, I want to be with you, are we on the same page, what's going on in your love life, needle, needle, needle. Beans, you said that you were critical of Penelope's actions in this episode, and this is a part where I really agree, because I think that what Colin really, really needed in this scene was for Penelope to be his friend, because she's so good at recognising when there's something wrong with him. She picks up on that, she has that ability, and what he needed was her to be his friend. And Colin just needs space. He retreated in on himself. He didn't kind of go and make a big spectacle of how hurt he was. He didn't rub it in her face. He went inside himself as he usually does. And she's pushing him romantically when that's the opposite of what he needed. And she ends up getting burnt by this entire interaction as a result, because she pushes him too far, as she did in 202, and she ends up hearing something that she didn't want to hear. But what I will say about Penelope in this is that this is the last time she does it. She doesn't make that mistake again.
This scene just makes me so uncomfortable. Penn just pushes and pushes, pressing Colin for an answer about whether he's ready to move on and look for a wife. And the response we get from Colin is equally frustrating. By the time Colin left Romney Hall, it seemed like he had accepted Marina's words and was ready to leave the past behind. But now, one day later, he still seems caught up in what ifs and wonders if things would have been different if Lady Whistledown hadn't written about Marina. Ouch. It's not what Penn wanted to hear, and it's certainly not what we wanted to hear. So we don't even really feel relieved when Colin ends the conversation by admitting he is starting to think about the future. And I feel like the last scene with Marina was like a necessary evil, but this one just sucks.
Yeah.
Do you know what though, for a start, I think I've seen many fans concerned about what this means for Colin and Lady Whistledown, because he's directly critical of Lady Whistledown here, which is a dagger to Penn's heart, because he's still in this moment is like, had Lady Whistledown not done what she did, we'd all have different lives. Penelope interprets that as Colin wishes he was married to Marina, and I'm responsible for his misery as well as Marina's misery. But I think it's also important to remember that Colin, by the time that he does find out about Lady Whistledown, will be in a totally different headspace, both in regards to how he feels within himself, how he feels about Marina, and how he'll feel about Penelope. So I don't think really we can take this pained moment as a model for how he's going to react.
True.
And then the other thing, is where I just slightly disagree with you. I think when he left Romney Hall, I don't think it had been resolved. I think he was just in shock and processing, and he took himself out of society for a whole day and a half to process. And fans get frustrated by his reaction here, but he needs time to process everything that happened, and he's trying to do that if certain redheads would just let him. And what I will say, and the proof is kind of in the pudding with this, is that this is a turning point for Colin. Every single Polin scene we see from this point onwards, after this catastrophe, is completely different. Colin approaches Penelope. He breaks through. He genuinely is starting to think about the future. He just needed this moment of figuring that out for himself and having that breakthrough. And he walks away from Penn, leaves her standing alone, dire times.
I will also say, I think that this is a turning point for Penelope too, because as Nicola has mentioned in interviews before, is that she needs to see Colin off of his pedestal that she's put him on. And this is the beginning of that crack in that facade that she has of Colin Bridgerton. He said something that she doesn't want to hear, and in this particular time, it's really affecting her, and while he doesn't know, it does start to initiate that change in how she sees him as this, perfect partner. And I think that's important for both of them, because once they learn each other's flaws and vices, they'll be better for each other.
I think that one of the reasons why we really dislike this scene as a fandom is because, we have difficult scenes between them, but there's usually some sort of humour between them, or there's something endearing about their interactions. But here they're just they're completely at odds. And it's because Penelope is approaching him in a way that he absolutely can't be dealing with in the moment. And Penelope learns from it. She doesn't do this again. She never needles him in the same way. We've said it in 202 that Penelope she's always turning to the last chapter, so now she's pushing him again, and what she learns here is that I think sometimes Colin needs Penelope to be a friend. It's a painful scene. Penelope's left standing alone. Not a good time for the Polins amongst us. Thankfully, we're going to get out the staircase because I don't want to hang around there any longer. And we end the episode as the Ton finally depart from Aubrey Hall after a successful in some ways trip for some, less successful for others. I love this tiny moment. I can't remember, I'm so sorry, but someone on the sub pointed this moment out and I'd never noticed it before, which is where Penelope waves goodbye to one of her friends that she's made it's one of the young ladies. So Penelope does have friends, and she's in a yellow carriage and everything. She's wearing yellow. It's like a little moment of yellow costume solidarity. And I just want to say that she's wearing the exact same dress 2 minutes later, but she looks adorable. And I think this goes to show that context is everything for how we perceive costuming, because she looks so sweet here.
You know what? She's so cute. I can't get over
That's her storytelling, is they're so at odds with each other visually and contextually within the scene. It makes us uncomfortable to be in that scene, where we see her lighter and happier. It's much better. Love it. Love this dress, Pen. Could still do without the 85 bows though.
And in this scene we see Anthony propose to Edwina.
Same plot drama.
And Pen looks so happy just that she's witnessed a proposal, and she's just she's just like a little romantic. I love it.
I'm going to be a little bit cynical. Going to be cynical. I agree that Pen is a romantic at heart. Don't doubt that. That's not been burnt out of her soul just yet. But I would argue that the reason she looks so pleased is because everyone else in the Ton has left. It's only really the Featheringtons and the staff and the Sharmas and Lady Danbury who are still left behind. And therefore that makes her one of the only people who actually saw the proposal. So Lady Whistledown has her exclusive after all. Remember earlier on when she was speaking to the young lady, she was worried she wouldn't have an exclusive scoop. Pen's got it. I think she's romantic, but she's a businesswoman and she knows when she's got a thing. And also I think she's happy that she gets to one-up Prue, because
thank God.
In the final Lady Whistledown of the episode, she says, sure, Prudence got a match, whatever, but you know what the real story is here? Anthony Bridgerton. And that, my friends, is victory. So Lecky, after all of that, do you have a whistle up?
So it's not a Paula moment, but my favorite moment this episode is probably Antony's little leg slide, the little move he does while he's dancing. Though the formation of Fallen, our Philip and Colin friendship is our plant besties is also a runner up there.
Mm-hmm. Eloise is going to be so pissed off when Colin has married her best friend, so she's lost her best friend. And she's like, okay, fine, I'll go find someone else. And then she goes and meets Philip. She's like, wow, something of my own. And Colin is going to be like, oh yeah, do you mean my best friend? My best friend Philip? She's like, hang on, no, you already married my best friend. She's like, yeah, she's my wife, so I had a vacancy as best friend. And that's Philip. And Eloise is going to be like, for fuck's sake, get out of my life.
Yeah.
Do we have a whistle down for this episode? Anything that made you feel distinctly uncomfortable, like you wanted to rip your eyeballs out by any chance?
I think it goes without saying that that's going to be the Beauty and the Beast scene. No surprise there. Colin and Penn are on completely different wavelengths. Penn is being inconsiderate. Colin speaks negatively about Lady Whistledown. It sucks.
Bow ratings, Jesus Christ, this bow rating should be out of about 59, shouldn't it, this week? I'm going to say Penn looks incredible. I like to see her at Aubrey Hall. The rest is a bit heart-wrenching, so I'm going to give it a 7.
Yeah, that's my rating too. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, sure, I'll go 7 as well.
Beans, are you going to be controversial? You love the drama.
I like the drama, but I just kind of was disappointed in both Penn and Colin this episode. I wasn't feeling either of them. I'm going to give it an 8.
You've got a fall to rise, haven't you? And next week might be a little bit better for both of them. Mm-hmm. In fact, next week, I actually think that we're going to have a mid-season break. We're yet to figure out exactly what we're going to do, but I do have a little plan up my sleeve. So we're going to have a little break from our rewatch, as we like to do. We're going to go lick our wounds with Colin and recuperate from the stress of this episode and bring you something a little bit different. Until then, Lecky, where can everyone find us?
You can find us at What a Barb Pod on Instagram and TikTok.
And you can find us over on the subreddit at reddit.com/r/Polin Bridgerton.
Beans, you're actually with us this week.
Yeah.
So I'm so honoured, so delighted, so thrilled to ask you, can you see us out?
Das violin. Do 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 do. Boo dee doo dee doo dee doo dee doo.